Hello and welcome back to another episode of Peanut Butter Neya Time. You guys can follow me on Instagram at supertneyan, so SUPERTONEYAN, and at Neya, Neya on YouTube. So today I wanted to talk to you guys about something I feel very passionate about, and this is really my mantra that I live by, and just sharing with you guys what this mantra is and how it came to be, how I came to live by this. And so this mantra means a lot to me because it's what I live by to be confident, assured, and happy. And my mantra is to feel good, to look good. So I truly believe if you feel good, you'll look good. Feel good, look good. Feel good, look good. Say that to yourselves every day, as many times as you need to truly believe it. So where did I really come up with this mantra and why? I think that's a really important question. And I really want to talk about this in like holistically. So it might take a while. That's why I've set my mood lighting to a purple. We're getting in the feels today, getting into the emotions of where this came from. So in order to really understand this, it's all about really my body journey. And I think this feel good, look good mentality comes from self-care and really a journey I've been on personally, from a girl to a woman, of really understanding who I am, how to love myself fully for who I am and why I should. So I want to kind of bring us back to my younger days. And I think this will like start to paint the picture of like breaking down of who I really am. So I grew up in Melbourne, Australia. I am from a family of 2 kids. So I'm the youngest. My sister's older than me. And I think as like kids, you kind of naturally draw to one parent a little bit more. I think I was really like attached to my dad when I was younger. We would do a lot of things together. I think we just had aligned interests. My sister was definitely like a normal girly girl, loved shopping, loved like getting her nails done, beauty stuff. And she was just like that from like quite a young age. And so she was super close to my mum. I think they get along really well. They just have like just similar interests and just like had a lot of things like as we were growing up and traveling that they wanted to do together, like shopping. Whereas like I was a very carefree child that literally just loved food. I think that was like my main priority in life, was just like eating. And so my dad also really loves eating. And so we would just like eat together. And on holidays, I would be like, okay, Dad, where are we going to go eat? Like we would just potter around together and find things to eat. I remember this one time we were in China and I distinctively remember being in Shanghai and we were in this little market area where they were cooking all these type of foods, and there was this one like dumpling station and they were cooking these dumplings. They were wrapping them and then placing them into the pan and putting this sesame sauce in it and making it like a little bit juicy. And Dad and I stood there watching that for like a solid 30 minutes before we decided, okay, maybe we should try some. And so this is just like an insight to who my dad and I when we were young, and I just loved eating. I was super passionate about it. I would eat everything and it was amazing. Like I think I just had absolutely no idea about body image, never felt pressure from my parents or my family to be like a certain size. And just like I just was who I was. And I think I kind of was like in a really great place because at that age I was so ignorant. I didn't really care about what anyone else did or thought about me. I just lived in my own little la la land. And my parents will tell you like I literally lived in a la la land, that they were concerned sometimes as to like, is she learning? Is she doing things? Does she have interests? And I think this is like so interesting because I don't know why I was like this. I was just so not like, I wouldn't say independent, but like independent minded. Like I didn't really care what other people thought. I would just do what I felt like. And so I had no idea about body image, was not influenced by it at all. I would watch like plenty of Hannah Montana, all the Disney Channel, and I never really like was influenced by like what I saw. Like, oh, like they're that size, I should be that size. Like, no, not at all. So I think this is like super great, and I would wish it upon any child to have like a great mindset around just like not caring about body image and just like pure lack of awareness is great. Yeah, so no idea about body image, also no interest in boys. I think like the times that I had interest in boys, it was just like very, romanticized from like novels or like movies and things that I saw. So I was like no maturity in like actually ever going to date anyone. I think I had like the fattest crush on somebody when I was like 16 or 17 and told them, and it didn't amount to anything because I just think like I didn't really ever think that I would be loved, like not loved, but I didn't really think it would be reciprocated because I didn't really feel like I looked like everybody else. But that wasn't in like a negative way on myself. I just felt like I wasn't understood. So I was like so comfortable in my skin up until the age of like 18 and 19. So I think I was kind of a late bloomer in that stage. I went to all girls schools as well and didn't really feel any impact of like body dysmorphia, like body disorders, eating disorders, like any sort of pressure around that at all. I was just as I was. And I think I take that as like a blessing, because I think growing up in high schools, like there's so many problems that like girls, guys go through, and it's such a melting pot, right? Because everyone's going through like different development stages of puberty, emotionally, like at home, what's happening at home, what's happening with friends. Like there's just so much there. So I think like the less things that you would have to deal with as a teenager, the better. And I think for me that was great because I was immature, I think, in terms of like boys, being able to like talk to boys, being able to talk to like socialize with new people. I wasn't as like confident as that in that, but I didn't feel any pressure per se. Like I wasn't as aware of it. Anyway, so when I hit 17, I actually graduated from high school. So in Australia, you graduate around like 18, but I started a year early, like not a year early, but like I started a year early, but not because I was like, everyone's like, oh, you skipped a grade. I'm like, no, I was just like in the age bracket to go in early. So I went in because I was in March. So I went in early. So I graduated when I was 17, and I felt like I had a whole year ahead of everybody else in my year level that was 18 already. So I was like, oh, let me seize this by doing a gap year program. And I didn't really think much of it. I was just like, I really want to go travel. I want to live overseas. It looks like such a fun opportunity. I remember these people came from this program called Latitude that I went with. And you just volunteer essentially, and you go on like a volunteer visa to the UK. And you just work at a school as a teacher's aide. And you're in this like weird mix, like you're not a teacher, you're not a student, but you're treated as a gap student. So we were able to go on like, they would give us boarding. We wouldn't get paid, but we would get like volunteer charity money, whatever, charitable money, like once a month. And then we would just help out around tasks that they needed help with. So we would help on sporting classes, like help for dyslexic kids, like help them write notes in class, do like boarding school, like putting people to sleep, helping up doing the boarding duty. So that was super fun. And I think I really grew up so much going on a gap year, just like learning to have responsibilities, being independent, having to be 17 and in another country and looking after myself. I don't feel like my parents necessarily thought I was ready for that, but I think they were like, you know what, she wants to do it, go for it. Like they never stopped me, which was amazing. And I don't think I even really realized like what I was getting myself into and how that experience was going to impact me. I just wanted to go and like travel and have fun. And so I did it. Gap year was really, really fun. I think it was an opportunity for me to break out of my high school like bubble and personality and try and like kind of redefine myself and make new friends. And so, I remember I went to a school and it was a co-ed school. And so there was like a mixture of like people who were even older than me who were finishing like their A-levels. So there were people that graduated that we ended up becoming friends with. And I remember like socializing, going to the pub and things like that. And I started to be noticed. I'm doing air quotations if you're not watching the video and you're a podcast, by other gender, and was starting to get paid attention. And for me, I was really surprised by this because I honestly never found myself to be like an attractive person or like someone who would gain attention from others through like looks. It would just be more personality. Like for context, my two best friends in high school were so pretty, still are absolutely gorgeous, and like all the boys liked them. I think they were just very cool, you know, like we would meet up after school, go to a mall, and we would socialize with like the Melbourne High boys. And I feel like one of them was like super social, still is really social and knows everybody. And the other one was just like super cool, was kind of in like the it group in high school, because I went to high school with her, but we were just in different groups. And yeah, they both ended up having boyfriends from the same group. I was just like the third wheel, fifth wheel to like most of those things. And I never really, but I didn't feel like sad about that. I was completely fine with it, because I don't think I ever felt comfortable engaging with guys in an actual like relationship way. Like I think there was boys that was like, oh, they're cute, and like I would like to like chat to them on Facebook Messenger, but I didn't actually like have an intention to date them, because I didn't know what the dating was. Like when I was just really late to the game, guys. But I just didn't feel comfortable. I was just emotionally immature. And I think I was just so consumed by like what I saw on TV. I didn't really understand like how to communicate with them. I was like, oh, like boy meets girl, they talk. I don't really know how that works. Anyway, so yeah, even like in high school when we did do like boy girl social events like outside of school or anything, I used to get like mad anxiety, because I felt, oh, I'm just so odd, and like no one has an interest in me, and I don't really know how to talk to you. And I think that's a really natural thing to feel. But I definitely think, I guess without realizing it at that time, I don't really think I thought it was as much about looks, but I did feel like I was different. I just didn't feel as comfortable and confident. So yeah, that was me in high school. And I don't think this was like crippling at all. I really don't, like when I say I didn't care, I'm trying to emphasize to you that it was not a priority for me to have a boyfriend. It was not a priority for me to like socialize with boys. I just felt like, oh, I didn't ever feel like, oh, I'm not enough. I just felt like, oh, I don't think these people understand me, and I don't think I understand them, but that's okay. It just never really bothered me. Anyway, back to gap year. So I started to get attention from guys, and they were like saying that I was attractive, and I kind of just thought that was like weird. And I remember going out to like a bar one time and meeting like a friend, and there was this really cute guy, and I was like, whoa, he's so cute. And then he had like an interest in me. And I thought it was like the strangest thing ever. I was like, is someone punking me? This is so weird. And I didn't really like know how to handle that. I remember I ended up like kissing him, which was like a really big deal for me. I think it was like my first kiss. Yeah. But I didn't really like know how to manage that or understand it, and was still like emotionally immature and such a lack of experience. But yeah. So one part of it was, started to get boy attention, started to realize like, oh, am I like somewhat attractive? Like people categorize me as attractive. This is strange. Like don't really know how to deal with boy attention. So there's that one part of it. And then I think like that confidence that I was building from like social awareness, if you know what I mean, like to people around me recognizing and like validating and giving me this like, oh, you're like pretty, and like, oh, you're attractive. That was kind of like feeding my ego, as it would naturally to anyone. So I think being noticed by guys. And then I remember this tipping point was one time I was at the mall in the UK with my cousins, and we went to Abercrombie and Fitch or Hollister. I think it was Hollister. And someone came up to me and gave me like a card, and was like, it was like a recruiting card that I don't know if you guys know, but Abercrombie and Fitch used to recruit people in their stores. I don't know if they still do it. They have gone through a lot of heat, so I'm not sure if they still keeping up with their old antics. But anyway, they gave me this card of like, oh, hey, like, would you like want to apply to work here? And I was like, that's so random, but sure. And then my cousin was like to me, oh, you know, they only give that to people who are like, they think are attractive and fit like their like type at Abercrombie. And I didn't realize that Abercrombie had like a type of person, like an aesthetic or whatever. And so I was like, oh, okay. I remember I was super like flattered by this, because I think this is like, you know, it's like someone saying like, it's like a girl in a movie being like, hey, you want to sit with us and have lunch? And you get validated, you get recognized, you get acknowledged by like somebody else. And I think that started to feed my ego and validate it to me. I'm like, oh, okay, so maybe I am attractive, which was not a bad thing, because I think it kind of started to at least give me myself confidence in my like looks. But at the same time, it was like a lot of new emotions and attention that I had to learn to deal with, right? Because I don't think because I didn't have it like progressively built up over time, and this self-confidence from within from when I was like 15 or 14, it was strange getting it like 18, right? So I remember going to this application, like filling in the application, and I booked in a time to go and do like a casting because they cast you. But I didn't realize it was like, it's kind of like a model casting. They go in, they take like shots of you, like photos of you, and then they'll let you know. And then they interview you as well, I think. I never heard back from them. And I think I remember like not hearing back from them and thinking, oh, maybe it's because I was like a bit tubby then. Like I definitely was a bit chubbier at that time. And so I think that was the turning point when I started to get really fixated on this idea of being a model. And it came out of freaking nowhere. I feel like that was like, to me, I think I remember talking to my parents about it, and I was like, oh, like this happened. And then they were like, oh, like, yeah, you could totally model. Like that would be fun. And I just kind of entertained the idea. But I think that was like the switch that flicked. Like I really like got fixated on this idea, like, okay, I think I can model, like maybe I should try it. So then I remember this was the time period in the era of like skinny girls was a thing, like thigh gap, box gap, like all this toxic. But I remember going on, I think it was like, I used to be really into Tumblr, and I found like all this like content of like this aesthetic and all that, and started to get like inspired by it, which is a bit tragic, but anyway. So I got fixated on becoming a model, and I remember watching some videos and like reading and finding out like what the measurements were that you needed to be a model. And so I got fixated with losing weight. So at that time, I think I was like at my max. I think I want to say I was like 79 kilos, which like, and it was not muscle, guys, just being clear. This is just like mostly like tubbiness. So I wasn't really working out. So I literally flicked a freaking switch, and I remember I just started like going to the gym every day, 5 days a week, and I would just run 5 kilometers. I just went from 0 to 100. And then I started like, I think I just had to become a vegetarian. And then I bought all this stuff of Herbalife, like what the anyway, from Herbalife. And if you guys don't know what Herbalife is, I think it's like I'm pretty sure it's like a period screen multi-marketing, like kind of like vibe, you know? It's like, yeah, I think it's pyramid scheme. But anyway, I bought Herbalife and got into that world. So I started drinking this. It's like a powder, and then you mix it with water and you just drink it. It's like a protein shake, but not. It's not even food, but I was treating it like food. And people used to drink that to like lose weight. Anyway, this is a dark place, but let's just ride the wave, guys. So I started drinking Herbalife. I would literally eat like slices of avocado on a rice cracker as like a lunch, as like a meal. I was trying to eat like 1,000 calories or less a day. So this was like the start of turning into like a bad relationship with food. Yeah. And a bad relationship with just weight loss. Yeah, so I think this time period of really, yeah, it definitely corrupted me, but I'm grateful that it happened, because I think it took me on this journey to get to where I am now, and really to understand like who I am and what is okay for my body. So yeah, I think I dropped like, maybe at this time period when I was still in the UK, I dropped like 8 kilos, and it was recognizable. I remember like people being like, wow, you look so good, like you've lost weight, and like, terrible, but it fed into my ego of like, oh, I'm doing so well. Like I was really signed up for that. Anyway, so yeah, I was running 5 times a week, 5 kilometers a day, eating less than 1,000 calories a day, maybe like max 1,000. And yeah, and then I remember I started to develop like a eating disorder. So I was starting to like be bulimic periodically. Like it wasn't consistent. It was just like every now and then. I think it's like when I started to really start to gain control of myself. And I think bulimia is quite usually like associated with being control and like being able to manage yourself. But I think I was going through ways of sometimes I would binge eat and then I would like vomit, and bad cycle. Anyway, so I definitely at that time didn't realize that I was actually in like, I guess, a pretty dark place, but I never felt that I was out of control, right? I always felt that I was kind of within reason. And I recognized very clearly like I shouldn't be doing like vomiting, but I was very fixated on this goal. And what's a really funny thing that I take away from this is that this time period, I think, was a switch of when I realized I could really set my mind to anything and do it. And when I look back at that time, I'm like, wow, I was so determined. And it just shows that like if I really wanted to do something, I could do it. Not that it was like, and taking out the fact that it wasn't definitely for the right reasons, but yeah, the human body and the human brain is crazy of like what you can set your mind to and what you can do. Okay, pausing for a little break for my peanut butter fact and update. So my peanut butter fact of the day is, did you know it takes 540 peanuts to make 12 ounces of peanut butter? That's wild. Thank you, peanuts, for being alive. I love you so much. All right, back to my story. So I moved back to Australia. Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, end of my gap year, I moved back to Melbourne. And when I got home, I started to get like really serious about like this idea of modeling. So I think by the time I got back, I was still like wanting to lose a bit of weight, even though I looked amazing. In hindsight, Neya at the time would not have told herself that. But yeah, so I set myself a specific goal of weight. I think it was like around like 60 to like 59 kilograms, and then also to be a certain amount of measurements. And let's just preface this with like, I'm 177 centimeters tall. I'm a very athletic build. Like when I say that, if you ever see my calves, you'll know what I mean. Like I'm just built athletically. My parents are built athletically. My sister's built athletically. We're all athletic. We're like very athletic looking people. Anyway, so I'm tall, I'm athletic, I have a decent amount of muscle mass, my legs are really strong. So being 59 or 60 kilograms is really light for me, like really light. And so it was just a very unrealistic weight for me to be at and to be able to maintain, but that was my goal. So yeah, I remember I dieted, I think for another 2 months, and I got to a pretty bad place in the sense like I wouldn't eat bread, pasta, I wouldn't eat pumpkin, I wouldn't eat like potato, like things that people told me like made me go away. I wouldn't eat rice cakes. I would just eat like pudding for breakfast, which is like eating air. Lunch, I remember I would have like a chicken salad, and then dinner, I was eating like a cabbage soup for months. And bless my parents for like supporting me, because that was what I wanted to do. They were like, kind of just like, okay, we'll like support you and let you go through this. But they were very definitely watching very closely, and I think they were super supportive for a while. But then I remember my dad pulling me aside one time and just being like, you cannot lose any more weight. Like, promise me you won't lose any more weight. Like, you're just getting too slim. So anyway, I ended up getting to about 60 kilograms when I decided to take my casting photos for modeling agencies. And I remember taking these casting photos and still thinking, oh, I have this area and that area to lose weight. But I sent them off, and results, I actually got a call back from an agency, and I remember being so excited because I felt like, oh my God, I've done this. Like I have like set my mind to this and I've gotten what I wanted. So I remember my dad driving me to the agency. I went in, they took photos of me, they like measured me, and then I remember they like flattered me by saying like, oh, did anyone ever tell you look like Jessica Gomes? And like Jessica Gomes is a really big Australian, like half Asian, half Western model in Australia that was like the face of David Jones for ages. And she's stunning, and yeah, people were like, oh my God, you look like her. Like quite a lot of people thought that at the time. I was like, thank you. That's very, very kind of you. So yeah, that obviously boosted the ego more. And yeah, so I got signed by this agency, which woohoo for me. That was really exciting. That was a big milestone that I achieved. And then so I ended up modeling for about a year and a half. And then deciding to stop. So let's talk about that. So I think during that period of once I got signed, I was keeping up with like being really thin, eating not much. But at the same time, I also started university like properly. So I was like, I think I was in my first semester when I first started modeling, and then I kind of felt into the second semester and I started socializing a bit more, and then I started to like socialize more and like meet people. And I think the journey of me being a model, it was going really okay. It was like you do free work and you take free photos and you spend all your time doing this free work in the hope of like doing paid work. And I did get paid a little bit, not much, but for a few jobs. And that was nice, but it's a hard like slog. Like that job is not easy. And kudos to people who model, because like, and I mean in the traditional old modeling agency sense, because that's hard. Like now you can really rep yourself through like Instagram, or you as a model have so much power, but back then really hard. And so yeah, I was modeling, kind of getting the experience, but I was kind of realizing like, oh, this isn't as fun. And so I had a turning point, which I'll get to in a moment. But before that, just a fun thing that I wanted to share was I do think it was really interesting that once I started to lose weight and I came back from my gap year, lost weight, started to go out more, socialize more. It was just so amazing, like the people that would like come back and befriend you now that you're like lost weight and you look more attractive and you're modeling now. Like people in high school that didn't really show me much attention, boys who didn't really want to talk to me, suddenly wanted to know me. Like I remember the boy that I had the fattest crush on in high school. I remember seeing him, and even now when I see him, I'm just like, he's like, wow, like you're so pretty. I'm like, leave me alone. You didn't want me when I was chubby. You don't get me when I'm a fitty. Anyway, let's go back to the turning point, and I want to talk about the whole like people wanting so much to do with you when you look a certain way in a separate podcast, because I think I have a lot to say about that and a lot of experiences to share with you guys. But let's get back to the turning point. So I think the 3 things that were the biggest turning points for me were, 1, I started to actually have like love interests, and the mature love interests. Like I remember I met this guy that I really, really liked. And I think once you meet a guy, you go on dates, you want to eat stuff. And I think for me, like eating is a very much so a part of like socializing. And so I did want to eat like certain foods. I want to like have that pizza with that person. I want to have the pasta with him. And I think that was really good for me to learn to like eat again and socialize a bit more and get out of my bubble and my obsession with like eating certain things. But it was really hard for me. And we'll talk about that separately in a moment. So 1 was like starting to have love interest really helped to break me out of this like negative mindset about, and then like the modeling world. Secondly, I had a friend of mine who, actually, let me go to the other point just. Secondly, I went to the agency one day, and this was like the point when I was like, no, this is just like, I'm not doing this anymore. So I went to the agency and they took casting photos of me, I think in a bikini, and then they pulled the images up onto the computer. And the guy was like, come here. And then he like started just pointing out all these places in my body in this image that he's like, this is a bit too big. Like you need to lose weight here. And just pointing out like all my flaws and where I could look better and slim down. And I remember just feeling like just having that moment of realization there. And then I was just like, what am I doing? This is not worth it. This is not my career path. And I'm not going to sit here and let somebody tell me how to look and how to feel. Like this is crazy. And I also just thought like I'm never going to be good enough. So like why am I wasting my time here? And yeah, I remember him telling me like, how many calories do you eat now? You should be definitely eating less than you burn and all this stupid. Anyway, so yeah, I think at that moment I was like, this is wild. What am I doing? So I was 20 at that point. Yeah. And then the other thing feeding off of that, the third thing that really pushed me to my turning point was I had a friend who started modeling the same time as me. I remember we both got casted and signed at the same time, the same modeling agency. And she did like heaps of ballet beforehand. And she started, when she joined the modeling agency, they asked her to stop dancing because she had too much muscle. She was like a really, really awesome dancer. So she stopped dancing. She lost so much weight. She really took off. Like she got really like petite and thin. Had a great face for editorial, was doing really, really good, getting signed for heaps of stuff. And I remember her telling me these horror stories of like the agency being like, you have to lose weight. So she lost weight. Then she went to a casting. And at that point she was so skinny, and at the casting, it was for like a catwalk, and the casting agent pulled her out of the line and were saying to her, who's your agency? You're so skinny. Like, this is disgusting. Why have you been sent here? And like ridiculed her in front of everybody, and then told her to gain weight. So then she was going on this yo-yo for a bit where she would gain weight. The agency would tell her to lose weight, and it was just like, she was like, this is so crazy. Like, I'm just, my happiness and my weight is being dictated by all of these people. It's absolutely insane. And I remember her just being so unhappy, and she ended up quitting modeling, thank goodness. But that as well, playing into like what happened at the casting with that agent, just made me realize and think there's absolutely no way that I'm never going to be the perfect size in that time with modeling agencies in the space that they were. This was like in 2014. Yeah. So just to comment, I do think modeling agencies and like the modeling world has come a long way. I think it's still pretty bad, but yeah, that empowered me to feel like absolutely not, this is not for me. And I was really proud of myself, because I do think it's super hard to be at an impressionable age of 18, 19, 20 and being told like, you're too fat, you don't look perfect for this, and being able to pull myself out of that situation and say, you know what, this isn't for me. Like, I'm not going to sit here and let somebody else dig my hole deeper, put me in a deeper and darker place mentally. And I was really proud of myself for just having that self-awareness to understand what I needed, and that was not it. So I think when I said before, I'm grateful that it happened, because I think it really made me believe in myself, of me knowing my self-worth, me knowing, being confident in who I am and knowing what's right for me, and being able to say no. And I think that's really hard to do, and it makes me emotional to talk about it, because I think it is really hard, and it brings up, don't cry, brings up a lot of like emotions. Yeah, because I think at that time I didn't really step back to recognize how much it impacted me, and how important it was for me to do that, and how dark of a place actually mentally I was in without fully acknowledging or recognizing it at the time. But being able to, my subconscious or like my core and fundamental self, to save myself from that, I think is something that I'm really proud of. Yeah, okay. So that was a turning point. I think quite an emotional time when I look back on it. But then I want to talk about the recovery. So after I quit modeling, it took me 2 years to really learn how to eat normal again. And so that's why I think now I'm like really sensitive to when people speak about food in a really negative way, or like take this mentality of like, oh, I'm gonna like work out so I can eat a lot later. Like, I just try my best to promote and encourage my friends to not, or people around me to not think like that, because I just think associating your exercise with like how much you can eat, or how much you eat based on how much you exercise, is just a really unhealthy connection and relationship to have. And I just don't think it's okay. So yeah, it took me 2 years to learn to eat normal again. And I think what really helped was having a boyfriend. I had a pretty serious boyfriend at the time, and he really, like, I think having a boyfriend and having support and having a life outside of all of that gave me the ability to have someone that loved me for who I was, and really loved me unconditionally. And I was able to eat like with them and enjoy life. And it just, gave me a new outlet. And I think that really, really helped. I think I went through periods of binge eating and like weaning off bulimia, and it took me a good few years to like fully wean off of that, because I would just do it randomly. It wasn't like consistent with every meal. It was just like once every like a month, or every now and then. But the thing I think that stuck around for a while was the body dysmorphia. I don't think I fully have gotten over to body dysmorphia until probably the last 4 or 5 years. No, maybe I think the last 2-3 years I've been like super confident, but before that I still did go through bouts of like body dysmorphia where I would just be negative about myself in images or like the way I looked at myself. And I think it's so crazy that I know that I'm not in that mindset anymore, because when I look back at photos of myself when I was really slim, all I think is it's so sad, because I just remember exactly how I felt when I took those photos. I remember thinking like, oh, like I'm still so fat, like I don't want to post this, or oh, like I'm not happy, like this and that. And I was like so thin. It's actually crazy that I felt that way about myself. Like even when I was 58 kilograms, I still felt like way worse than I am now. And I'm like 70 kilograms now and super fit and healthy and like happy. So yeah, I think that really, that really took me a while to get out of that body dysmorphia phase in my life. And I honestly didn't realize that I had body dysmorphia until I heard people talk about it. And I was like, oh, shit, yeah, like I had that. And yeah, you just don't even recognize it at the time. Anyway, so yeah, the getting back to me stage, I started to actively do things and make decisions for myself that would put me in a better place. So I stopped weighing myself a very long time ago, because I realized that really damaged my mindset towards my body. Like I think that was one of the biggest things that just set myself up for a negative mindset, is because when I was trying to lose weight, I would weigh myself every day and see like what the weight was, right? And so I think by stopping doing that action, I didn't connect myself to a number, and putting in like a number, like setting yourself and your value with a number is just so unhealthy. And I don't think, I honestly really like feel like in your day-to-day life, your weight doesn't matter. Maybe if you're an elite athlete and you need to be a certain like weight, or you're trying to do like be a bodybuilder, etc., all those kind of things, sure. But on your day-to-day, I just don't feel like it's necessary to weigh yourself, because that's where it leads me to my mantra, which is feel good, look good. And I think also look good, feel good. It works both ways. And I think your body and your confidence is really in the eye of the beholder. And that's where my mantra comes from, is like, you see yourself and you like feel good about yourself, you do things to make yourself feel good, you will look good. If you feed that feel good mentality, you will look good, right? It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks either. It's all about you and how you feel. And feeling is like literally most of it. And my parents told me a very long time ago when I was young, like, Neya, who pays your bills? Who pays them? I'm asking you guys too. Who pays your bills, right? Why do you care what people think about if they don't pay your bills, right? So sure, at work, do your best. Obviously, body image has nothing to do with most people's work, but everybody else in the world, like, we care so much about what people think. No one really cares that much about you. First of all, everyone's too focused caring about themselves and like, oh, does everybody else care? But those people don't pay your bills. So just do what makes you happy and do what serves you as a person, right? Yeah. So I just feel that's where I built my mantra from, was just really realizing that you are totally in control of how you see and feel and see and view yourself. And so much of that comes from how you feel about yourself, right? So if you need to be overconfident and tell yourself like, I'm the best, I'm this, do it. Overconfidence is great. I don't really see it as that bad of a thing. I'd rather be overconfident than really down on yourself. So yeah, the last thing I wanted to just say was to give you guys some advice. I think be so mindful of what you feed your mind and what you tell yourself. The more you tell yourself you are something negative, the way worse it is for you. Like, you will just continue to keep adding to that negative feeling, that negative mindset. And before you know it, you'll believe that about yourself. Even if you're just saying it, being self-deprecating or being silly, that stuff adds up. And I just don't think it's smart to do that. Forward is forward. And so like, if you can just keep rewarding yourself for the small steps, spend more time doing than more time sitting there thinking about what if, how can I, it's more like, just try it. If you try it, doesn't work, it fails, it's fine, move on, you've tried it. if you tried it and you might find that it works for you, then great, one step forward. I think just always keep taking like one step forward towards what you want, and being positive about yourself as opposed to being negative. I think the other thing is be really mindful about what you project into others. I try my best to be really positive about body image to other people, and I try not to give like negative thoughts to about myself or to others, or let my friends talk badly of themselves. When my friends are being like, oh, I look fat here or this or that, I'm like, no, you don't. And I try my best to just push them away from having that mindset or even talking about that, because as I said, the more you tell yourself it, the more you start to believe it, right? My other thing is, I think everything in moderation. So I eat everything now. I don't limit myself. And I think everything in moderation is absolutely fine. There's always more to eat. There's always more to have. Like, you're going to be able to eat that burger tomorrow. You don't have to have 2 today. Like, just do everything you want in moderation. Have that candy. Have that piece of chocolate. Eat that piece of vegetable. Like, just really everything in moderation. Nothing is terrible for you. Just moderate it. And then also, I think just being kind to each other. I think everyone has their insecurities, and everybody has to go through their processes to move on or fight that. And it's not easy. And people like seldom know that I went through all of this stuff because I don't talk about it. But I think giving people the space to talk about it and share your thoughts on it, and not come across as like, hey, I'm indestructible, I never feel anything. No, like, be vulnerable to other people. It helps to have a conversation. It helps to open it up for others. And I think that's really important. I think that's why I really wanted to have this conversation today, is because I just really love to spread the mantra of feel good, look good. I think if you can tell yourself that and truly believe it, it'll help you so much. Every person is absolutely beautiful. Every person is so confident. And I truly believe the more self-confidence you can have, the more self-love you give yourself, taking yourself out of toxic situations and being really self-aware, the better the person you will be. So I really appreciate you guys listening. If you've made it to the end of this podcast, I know it wasn't easy. It's a bit of a long one. But I hope this helps like your own personal journey. Maybe you just tell somebody else about it. And just, even if you yourself are really confident, you just, spread the word, or keep these things in mind when you talk to your friends or family, or when you have kids or your partners, anything. Because I think it's really fed by the community we're in. And if we can continue to just keep helping each other and building this really great mindset, then the world is our oyster. So thanks so much for listening. My final words will be feel good, look good. Thanks. Bye.